an introduction to our guest today, Christine Anderson. For those who may have forgotten who she is, a clip.
That it would have been more appropriate for Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a prime minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
It was at that moment that Canada fell in love with Christine Anderson, or at least the portion of Canada that still has a brain left. People, weekend live stream. It's going to be a short one. Interview with Christine Anderson. For those of you who don't know who she is, that's the intro. Member of European Parliament in the AFD, the Alternative for Deutschland, which gets demonized and besmirched by the media and legacy media as a far-right whatever. If you haven't met Christine Anderson, you're going to meet her now. If you've been around the channel for a little while, you've already seen her at least a couple of times. Christine, come on in. This is Christine's going to be doing a tour in Canada. The dates, if I can pull my glasses down, it's going to be June, July, end of June, early July tour dates in Montreal, talking about what's going on, I guess, in the European Union and across the world. Christine, first of all, it's good to see you again. Thank you for coming on. Tell the world who you are for those who may not know.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me again. I'm delighted to be on your show again. So who am I? Pretty much, I would say someone who does not play ball with the globalitarian misanthropists. I expose them. I show their real motives, their ulterior motives. And none of these have anything to do with freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. On the contrary, they're trying to abolish these values, freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. And they're doing so by various mechanisms, whether it's this whole transgender madness or climate change, or we've seen it through COVID. So, yeah, I'm just someone they really don't like.
Now, explain for those who don't understand, because in Europe, every country has their government, but then you have the European Union, and so the AFD has its the AFD is the is in German politics, but also involved in the European Union. How does that play out on the national and Euro-national scale in Europe?
Well, pretty much how the EU institutions work. They're actually the tools to undermine freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. So, just for starters, it's we are experiencing a Babylonian language, a confusion, because in the European Parliament, we don't speak the same language. And yes, there is translation, granted, but you might know that even if you would be able to translate, terms directly into another language, they mean different things depending on how it evolves in that language. So we don't even speak the same, literally don't even speak the same language. So how can we even discuss issues where you really have to dig deep and get into the whole issue? And how can you, even if we were able to do so, which we're not on a parliament level in the EU, how would you expect regular citizens to voice what they would want politicians to implement if they can't even communicate with them? So that's just part of it. It's also about the institutions, the way they work together. Like I said, it has nothing to do with freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. It's more kind of like an obscuring the democratic process, to remove it further and further away from the people, so the people will no longer know who they can hold accountable for what decision, since they don't even know who was exactly responsible for the decision. And add to that, even if the representatives of the German government were to travel to Brussels and actually represent what the German people wanted, then they, just won't have a majority, possibly not have a majority for it. So, and then things get implemented that the German people don't want. And then the German politicians, they will tell the people, well, we wouldn't have done that to you, but it's done in Brussels and we can't help it. So it's really removing what democracy is all about, which is government of the people, for the people, and by the people. But it no longer is. It is government of the globalitarian misanthropists, for the globalitarian misanthropists, and by the globalitarian misanthropists.
It's actually amazing you describe it like that. And it's all like the European Union has turned into countries subjugating their national independence for this European Union global interest. Some countries, however, carry a bigger stick in the EU than others, which leads to some resentment. Speaking of no accountability, just to go back about a decade, I'm old enough to remember when Angela Merkel opened up Germany's borders to Syrian refugees back in 2015, give or take. Caused all sorts of problems back in the day. Did I misunderstand that at some point the policy became to actually offer them money to return to Syria? Am I having a... Okay, I'm not crazy, right? I can't...
No, you're absolutely not. So first of all, she ripped open the border, open and wide, right? So anyone just, walked in. We have no idea who these people are. They're not vetted. They're not even, they're just here. And once they're here, we can't get rid of them because the countries they allegedly came from, they're not even telling the truth about that. Or they don't say anything at all. They destroy their paperwork or whatever. So we can't even get rid of them. So yeah, they're just roaming our streets, committing crimes on a scale that is unheard of. So just take, like we're talking about 2 brutal gang rapes every single day occurring in Germany. 2 of them every single day. And these women are so utterly beaten, within an inch of their life, right? If they survive. So, and this, now we're just talking about the rapes that have more than one perpetrator. I'm not even talking about the ones that only have one perpetrator. Or take these random knife attacks that we are having. They're no longer happening on a daily basis. They're happening on an hourly basis, every single day in Germany. There is no spot in Germany anymore where you are actually safe. So all of these repercussions, and not even talking about, the billions of euros we are throwing at these people to kind of like keep them somewhat happy. It's just insane. We can't get rid of them, and they are refusing to close the borders. And like I said, our new chancellor, Friedrich Merz, that is actually the number one issue he ran on. He wanted to close the borders, and his exact words were, "I will close the borders on day one." Well, guess what? The polls, the precincts closed, the ballots were closed, and the very next day, he appeared in the media saying, no one ever said anything about closing any borders. So he already, backtracked that. So they're just a bunch of liars, and it's really a big problem and a big issue right now.
How do you even close the borders in a nation where there are, I say, open borders not just to foreigners, but open borders within European countries? How would Germany close its borders, or how would any member of the EU close its borders with, I guess, somehow without violating part of the EU pact?
Well, it's done how you would just simply do it. That, by the way, is the reason they hate Donald Trump so much, because he's simply doing what we've been told for decades. Even if we wanted to, it couldn't be done. We can't close the borders. Well, Donald Trump is simply doing it. And they could, when the time we had the G7 conference here in Germany, they could close the borders to ensure the safeties of these corrupt politicians. That was possible. Right? But they can't close the borders to actually ensure that their own people are safe. Don't be ridiculous. It's just a matter, do you want to or do you not want to? And they don't want to. They could if they wanted to, but they don't want to. And that begs the question, what masters are they actually serving? Well, it's definitely not the people that got them elected and that entrusted or trusted them to do the right thing and to actually serve in the best interest of the people. And they don't.
This is a tough question because there are 2 types of conspiracies. One are that Angela Merkel or Germany as a whole, the zeitgeist, has this, this need to still apologize for World War II and the Holocaust, and this is why they act the way they do on a immigration scale. The flip side argument is that I've always had this theory: if you wanted to chase out the few remaining Jews or whatever remaining Jewish population exists in Germany, the way you do it would be by opening your borders to people who are fundamentally unfriendly or
Yes.
incompatible with the Jews.
Yes.
So which one is it? Or is it actually just maybe one that leads into the other, but they're doing it badly? Is this immigration policy some sort of apologism for Germany's role in World War II? Or is it maybe trying to finish the job that didn't get finished back in World War II?
Well, in some kind of a perverted way, they're actually thinking that if we, rip off, open our borders and just let anyone in, that this is some sort of an apology for what happened during these despicable 12 years we had in Germany. I mean, what the tragedy and the misery the Nazis inflicted on the world, pretty much. I mean, that is just, it's so despicable. And yeah, of course, you have to do everything to make sure that never ever happens again. So in their mind, they're somehow, working towards that to ensure it will never happen again. And that's the thing. And even Friedrich Merz, he told Fox News just the other day, when asked about that question, he admitted to the fact that, yeah, we do have an anti-Semitism problem in Germany right now. It's imported by the millions. We are importing this anti-Semitism. And get this, every time one of these migrants, I would call them illegal invaders at this point, anytime they lash out against Jews or commit an anti-Semitic crime or whatever, it gets labeled as right-wing extremism. Can you imagine? So, I mean, it's just insane. But you're absolutely right. We are importing anti-Semitism once again. We're doing that. And this is just, especially Germany should have a particular and special responsibility to ensure that anti-Semitism has no place in our society. But we are not only inviting them in, we are putting them up, we're sheltering them, we're feeding them, and we even, foot the bills for any legal costs they may have if we decided, or if the authorities decided they have no claim for asylum, then we'll even, make sure they can fight that in court. It's just ridiculous.
What's amazing is you say that there's acts of anti-Semitism from imported peoples that they then write off as far-right extremism, so they can call the AfD a far-right nationalist extremist group. Also, within a broader German population, set aside the importing anti-Semitism, you're importing social strife, where at some point native Germans are going to say, we've got a problem now with the people that have been brought in, and in this whatever guilt exists from whatever happened 70 years ago, they are actually importing and creating the very same conditions to have some sort of mass pushback from the native German population against foreigners.
Yes. That just plays into their plan, right? So if you have civil unrest, and they are importing the civil unrest. So if you have civil unrest, then yes, you need a strong state, right, to keep the peace and, to implement all kinds of mechanisms and all kinds of laws, to build up this militarized state, if you want. And that's exactly what they're doing. So they are literally making sure that there would be civil unrest by importing these millions of young men at fighting age, I might add, to ensure that they will have to step in. In a situation like that, the state will present itself as the solution. But we would not need a strong state if they would just stop importing the problem.
The AfD gets labeled a far-right extremist group, and it's not offensive because you have to take offense, but it's just the most idiotic statement on earth. What percentage now? You guys are up to 24% of the 24% representation in nationally within Germany?
I'm not quite what we're at now. So what happened was, in the last elections, we came in second, a strong second. We were at 20%, 21%, somewhere around there. And because once again, the people believed the former Conservative Party, which is the Christian Democrats, that was the candidate was Friedrich Merz, who came in first. He is now, consequently, he is the chancellor now. He ran on every issue that was actually our talking point, right? That it was our program. It was things that we wanted to implement. He stole that. He ran on that, and once again, the people believed him. And they said, well, look at Friedrich Merz and what he's saying. He's, doing all the right things now. And he's really changed. The party has changed. They will do the right thing now. Well, yeah, they didn't. Turns out they were fooled once again. And so before that new government was even founded, there was a flip-flop in the polls, and we were going at like 27, 28%, and the Christian Democrats had dropped down to like 24, 25%. And for the simple reason, people they have seen that they once again have been taken for fools. And we'll just see how it plays out. But right now we are polling number one.
I say amazing because the term national identity has been given a very derogatory term.
Yes.
But what you just described sounds identical to what just happened in Canada, where the Liberals under Carney basically adopted all of the talking points of the Conservatives to steal that thunder. Then they get elected, and lo and behold, 817,000 new arrivals within 4 months.
Well, I mean, the point is just this: the people need to realize the mess we're in right now. We are in this mess because they keep electing the same people over and over again. And at this point, it doesn't even matter if take in Germany, if you vote for the former Conservative Party or the former Liberal Party or the Social Democrats or the Greens or the left, they're all the same thing at this point. They only vary in nuances, right? So stop electing the people that got you in this mess the first place. That's the only way out. Think and vote differently. It's as simple as that.
Not to stir up any old beef, but speaking of getting demonized, and when you came to Canada and did the tour, you got it was one of my criticisms against Pierre Poilievre at the time. You got I say defamed, but you got insulted by you were called bad names by Pierre Poilievre. Take your hate home. You have no business here. And I said that was a mistake at the time. Asking a stupid question. Did he ever apologize, call to make amends, make any contact?
Of course not. But you know what? They can call me any name in the book. I don't care. I speak my truth, and I stand with the people, and I will always ensure that I will implement what the people ask me to do and what I said I was going to do. But the thing is this: I mean, as George Orwell said, the further a society drifts away from the truth, the more it will hate those that speak it. And, considering the hate that I'm getting, that I'm faced with, man, I must be truthful, and I must say a lot of true things. Otherwise, they wouldn't hate me to the extent they do.
Bringing it back to Europe for a question, I asked you this last time. Nordstream pipeline, have the German population, German politicians just given up trying to figure it out, trying to hold people accountable?
Well, see, that's just another issue, right? Okay, so Nord Stream 2 gets blown up, right? Critical infrastructure. Germany depended on that pipeline. It just gets blown up. And what does the German government do?
Nothing.
Nothing. Nada. Sip. They didn't even mention it. It was kind of like they took the attitude, well, it's gone now. Why cry over spilt milk, right? There was no investigation. They didn't even want to know who had done that. So at this point, I don't know who has done it. I just know for a fact who didn't do it. They tried to blame Putin. It wasn't Putin, because had there been a shred of evidence that had anything to do with Putin, we would have never heard the end of this one. I mean, the news cycle, it would have just gone on for weeks and months, presenting all the evidence and doing all of this, but it didn't happen. No one even cared. The German government simply did not care about that critical infrastructure, ensuring that we would have the energy that the German people needed. They didn't give a damn. And that's quite telling. That is actually the big tell here.
No, if it were in fact, Russia. I don't know if that would trigger an Article 5, like an attack on a NATO member, or international terrorism through attacking citizen infrastructure, and set aside the environmental crisis. Just it's disappeared from the landscape in Germany. Like, we haven't heard anything about it since it happened.
Exactly.
Everyone's moved on.
Yes, exactly. Like I said, they took the attitude of, well, it's gone now. Why cry over spilled milk, right?
From the West, we have J.D. Vance heading over to Europe and basically saying, you guys, not you, but European Union, no longer espouse our values. You're literally locking people up for social media posts in England. You're arresting, the owner, what's his name, Pavel Durov, in France. I don't know what's going on in Germany in terms of the type of stuff we see in England, but first question first, is what we see in England happening in Germany as well, but to a lesser extent?
It is happening. I wouldn't even say to a lesser extent. They're not quite as obvious about it, but I mean, it's not just happening in Germany. It's pretty much happening all over Europe. But they kind of started in Britain, and that's what I've been talking about before. Like all of these programs you're looking at, which really aim at abolishing freedom, democracy, and the rule of law, and they seem to be focusing with different programs in different countries. So take the attack on farmers, right? Taking their land, culling their cattle, whatever, because we need to save the planet. They're really pushing that agenda in Ireland, in the Netherlands, and in Canada, it appears. So they're kind of doing that in Germany too. Then you have this whole immigration or illegal invasion issue with importing, millions and millions of men in young fighting age. They're specifically doing that in Germany. But the censorship that is going on, what J.D. Vance spoke about, he was right on. And there is a new committee in the EU Parliament. It's called EUDS, European Democracy Shield. What a nice term, right? I know it's once again Orwellian language what they're using here. So they're trying or claiming to protect democracy by doing what? Doing more censorship. So we are no longer actually talking about, these fact checkers and fact checking whatever claim is out there. They're now talking not about debunking. That's their line, not debunking. They're talking about pre-bunking. And Ursula von der Leyen spoke in terms of that fake news and all that disinformation is like a virus. And the best way you protect against the virus is by not even allowing it to spread,
germinate
via an injection, a vaccine. She called it a vaccine, and that's what that pre-bunking is, right? So they want to deploy AI to make sure that whatever they deem misinformation, fake news, or misinformation, to not even that it won't even make it online anymore. They will kill it before it even gets online, right? So yeah, but the point is this: their attempt, or they're not trying to save democracy or protect democracy. They're actually destroying democracy. And the point is this: they are not afraid for democracy. They are afraid of democracy. Because by taking down this misdis and malinformation, which they claim is really bad for our societies and for our democracy, by taking that down, what they're trying to do is to ensure that they control the narrative. They need to be in charge of the narrative. Otherwise, their despicable plans of abolishing freedom, democracy, and the rule of law is not going to work. And they are shitting their pants at this point because they're not even hiding it anymore.
It was like Jacinda Ardern, she was New Zealand, where she's like, if you want your information, you come to the government, we'll give you the information.
We are the sole source of truth. That's what she said, right? Well, I think not.
What is the sentiment on the street now? So obviously the people who support the AFD don't support any of this crap, but what is the other 75%? Is it like what I see up in Canada, where they like it, they're welcoming it because they are victims of the very propaganda that
Yes.
put them in that place to believe it in the first place, and they just can't wake up out of
Yes.
it.
Yes. I mean, for a regular citizen, if you just consume mainstream media and, read the mainstream paper, you are literally brainwashed at this point. And they won't even allow any other thoughts, or, they won't even allow themselves to question anything. But the truth of the matter is, this discrepancy between what is being reported and the way it is reported, that discrepancy and with what they're actually seeing in everyday life, that is getting so big now, and you cannot really consolidate that anymore. So, like I said, they're being told, once again, this illegal mass invasion by these young men, that is good, and we were told they're going to pay our pensions one day. Yeah, well, right. The pensioners are actually now going rummaging through the garbage to get bottles so they can make some money off of these empty bottles or whatever. So it's the pensioners actually financing these young men, right, who claim that they are so oppressed in their countries, but they're not oppressed enough to go back on vacation to their countries. I mean, how sick is this, right? So it's that discrepancy. It's getting so huge, and the people are beginning to realize that everything that my party has been saying ever since 2013, when we were founded, it wasn't fear mongering. We weren't making stuff up. They're seeing now, they were actually right. We're seeing it now. It's happening, right? So yeah, they're having big problems right now. And another fun fact: they've been for years. They've been talking about lowering the threshold for the voting age, and they wanted to get 16-year-olds to vote in the elections. And they have actually done so for the European elections. They're 16 years old. 16-year-olds are now eligible to vote. What they had done in the national parliamentary elections in Germany, they have these mock votes where they have 16 to 18-year-old votes. Well, there is no talk about lowering the voting age anymore. Want to know why? Because we came in first in that age category. So yeah, they're not entertaining that thought anymore.
So it's amazing. There's so many parallels between what's going on in Europe and what is being proposed in Canada. I was trying to find an article where I recall them wanting to lower the voting age to 16 because you got to get people when they're young and dumb to vote liberal.
Yeah.
And then, you talk about...
But even that is not working. But once again, I'm not surprised. We are seeing the very same thing in all of the Western democracies. They're reading from the same script, right? They're trying to abolish freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. And not only in Germany or in Canada or Great Britain or Italy, everywhere, in every single Western democracy.
Now, and incidentally, also, we have the same problem in Canada where the elderly, the people who are supposed to have their pensions and their, their elderly years subsidized by the new working generation, are now homeless and, being offered mobile units to take them off the streets because they've been pushed into the streets because of the cost of living and the housing crisis. Hypothetically, AfD gets controlling power in Germany. And it's like such a terrible thing to say, except we see the way it's been working in America. And the way it's been fought tooth and nail by the powers that wanted the invasion in the first place. Would AfD embark on mass deportations to get the non-Europeans out of Europe?
Well, what we are aiming for is what we call remigration. So, and remigration pretty much, it's rather than incentivizing these illegal invaders to come to Germany, to put a stop there, and the ones that are already there, to incentivize them to actually go back home by not catering to their every needs. When they come here, so they're expected to take a job, but then they get picky. Well, we can't work somewhere where they sell alcohol, for example, or they need to like have five brain breaks every day. You don't do that. You want to come here, you're welcome to come here, but you will actually abide by our standards, by our by our traditions, and we will not cater to you anymore. So yeah, we will absolutely do that, and of course we will make sure that all of those that are required to leave the country as we speak already. It's done. Their request for asylum was denied. Yeah, we make sure they have to leave the country, and we also will make sure that they don't turn around once they're back in their country to just come back, because that's just the ridiculous stuff the last government was doing. They were paying them like 3,000 euros, cash on hand, if they were to go back home voluntarily. Well, they used the very same 3,000 euros to just come right back. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It's amazing, actually, because Trump is doing the voluntary self-deportation in America, offering them, $1,000, all paid expenses to get out. And then some people are saying, yeah, they're going to do it, and then wait for another administration to come right back in, or find a way to come right back in,
right,
and take that $1,000.
But you have to make sure. I mean, that is actually a smart way of doing it, right? Because just think how many flights when the authorities actually do manage to get like 5 or 6 or maybe even 10, 10 of them on a plane to deport them, they will just throw a fit on the plane, resulting in the pilot refusing to transport them. So they walk right back out, right? So it is actually, that might be a way of working. If you said, look, we pay you, I don't know, 3,000 or whatever, right? If you were to go back home voluntarily, but then you need to make sure that they will not come back. And for that, of course, you need to have control of the border, and you need to shut the border, and you actually need to enforce it. And that's not what's happening right now.
We've seen Romania, Poland. I'm trying to think of where there's been lawfare or anti-constitutional conduct in the context of elections. What's your take on what happened in Romania, and who is pulling these strings in terms of literally annulling elections that they don't like the results of?
Well, I don't know who's pulling the strings. I said that before. If I did, I would spill names, but I don't know. And once again, I mean, it's the globalitarian misanthropists. That's what I call this unidentified group. I have no idea who they are. I just know who it isn't. I mean, it isn't Angela Merkel. It isn't Friedrich Merz. It wasn't Trudeau. They are putting their face in the camera, and they are advocating for all of these anti-democratic, anti-constitutional implementations and measures. It's not them. It is someone else. I don't know who it is. But what they did in Romania, I mean, like I said, they're not even hiding it anymore. So they just go ahead and annul an election because they didn't like who came in first in the first round, right? So they accused him of being a Putin troll, is what they're calling him, Putin shill, or whatever names they use. They accuse him of having been paid by Russia, but they have not presented a single shred of evidence for that claim. And they just annulled the election. Then they even barred, it was Kalin Ceausescu, they even barred him from running in the repeated elections. I guess they got their way. So Georges Simeon ran, and he did a hell of a campaign. He was really good, but he didn't make it in the end, right? They once again got away with it, and they got their way. But we're seeing, I mean, there's governments imploding left and right at this point. It happened in Germany exactly on the day that Donald Trump was elected, by the way. The very same day in the evening, the German government imploded. You have the Netherlands. It's just imploded. The Geert Wilders, he withdrew from the coalition. You had it happening in Austria. So it's happening everywhere, pretty much, because the people are no longer satisfied, and they're no longer content, and they will vote differently. And that's why they're scared, and they need to do everything, pull every trick in the book to ensure that the globalitarian misanthropists, will not lose their power.
We cannot not talk about Russia-Ukraine war and the broader support in Europe, which seems totally suicidal. When you look at Zelensky having these incursions further inland in Russia, ostensibly abusing of the fact that, from what I understand, Putin had some of the nuclear-capable aircrafts visible, which was part and parcel of some international nuclear treaty that the bombers remain visible by satellite, and apparently, subject to verification, Zelensky abused of that fact to strike those with drones. When you look at what Zelensky's doing in Russia right now, seemingly escalating the conflict and begging for a more serious reprisal from Russia, is it Europe's hell-bent on entering a World War III, or is it Zelensky, who is a flailing regime, just striking out madly as his regime goes down?
Well, it might actually be a little bit of both. So, I mean, number one, Zelensky does not appear to be the most stable guy on the planet. He seems erratic, hell-bent, as you said, on just, going further and further into this war. The thing is this. When Putin invaded Ukraine on February 25th, 2022, I mean, my party, we take national sovereignty very seriously. And you do not violate the borders, right? And you certainly, I mean, that goes for illegal mass invasion, as well as, and especially it goes for someone doing so with military means, which Putin did. He should have never done that. That was an absolute no-go. But the truth of the matter is, this war did not start in February of 2022. At the very least, the very latest, it started in November of 2014 with the events on the Maidan. And back then, we've been told it was Russian rebels, shooting down these protesters on Maidan. Well, it turns out it wasn't the Russians. It was actually the Ukrainian authorities that they shot down their very own people. And going back, what had preceded that? The Ukraine was supposed to join EU, and there have been negotiation talks going on. Then Timoshenko, I'm not quite sure if you remember her. She was the president, and she realized my people they don't want to join EU. So guess what? They did a regime change. She was imprisoned on some trumped up charges, whatever. Then the next one, I think it was Yanukovych. Then he was then elected, and he said, "Well, look, my people don't want to join EU. We will just cancel these negotiation talks." But once again, the globalitarian misanthropists, in that case, the EU, they will not take no for an answer. So they made sure that a civil unrest, civil war kind of like erupted there to just ensure that the path forward for Ukraine to join EU would not be disturbed in any way. So this is pretty much the situation. Do we need peace there? Oh, absolutely, we do. And Donald Trump is right about that. We do. Point of the matter is, there would have been a chance of peace in the beginning, like let's say maybe up until September, October, November of 22, when it wasn't quite clear how this was going to play out. So that would have been the time to just make sure that Zelensky and Putin get to a table and have a negotiation of peace. But we didn't do that. On the contrary, so we provided aid to Ukraine, but it wasn't really aid. It was just enough to keep the war going, but to make sure that Ukraine did not stand a chance in hell of actually winning this. Now, why should Putin even consider negotiating peace? He is winning, and it was the West actually ensuring that with their ridiculous sanctions that didn't hurt Putin in the least. On the contrary, it hurt us more than it hurt Putin. And I mean, Putin even made money off of that. Just the ridiculous thing when it started in 22. Since Germany was so principled, right? We let Putin know, look, dude, we will not take your gas anymore. You started this war and we're not going to support you anymore. We will not buy your gas anymore. And well, the problem was we were bound by contract. So we had to pay the gas that we refused to take since we were so principled, right?
It's comically
and Putin was just like, fine, suit yourself. I'll sell it to India. So he resold it, the very same gas that we had already paid, but refused to take. And he sold it to India. And then India was like, look, guys, I got some gas and I think you need some. You want to buy it from me? So we took the gas just via India rather than directly from Russia, paid it twice, and Putin got paid twice. This is supposed to hurt Putin? Oh, please give me a break.
No, but it's like we're being governed by virtue signaling buffoons. Like in Canada, when
Yes,
they got
yes,
angry with the U.S. over the tariffs, like,
yes.
we're taking your alcohol off our shelves. And like, you already
Right.
paid the tariffs on that, you morons. You're not
Yes, of
penalizing
course.
anybody.
Yes, but
Whole-
to the other part of your question. So, I mean, why are they apparently so hell bent on pushing this war? Well, a reason might be is the control of the narrative. Their power is slipping away because, as I said, governments are imploding left and right, and it becomes increasingly difficult for them to maintain their power. I mean, look at the lengths they have to go through is by canceling elections, barring people from running now, just to ensure that they will maintain their power. And when you have a situation like that, well, what do you need? You need an external enemy. And a war is the perfect thing, the perfect way out for them to make sure that they will retain their power. And that's probably their go-to now. Is that might be the reason why they're pushing war.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Zelensky will lose the next election. I think he'll be, persona non grata in Ukraine, which is why he's got to keep the war going for as long as possible
Exactly.
to continue martial law with no elections. And then when it's over, it's not even clear where he flees to in exile for safety. Meanwhile, he could take down all of Europe into a World War III. Christine, I know you got a heart out, and maybe I'll get a few more questions.
Yeah.
The tour.
And I actually need to go. So
yeah, okay. What is the tour that you're doing in Canada? What's it about? Where's it going to be?
Well, so I start out on June 27th. That will be in Calgary. On the 28th, I think I have another one there. And then I will go over to Edmonton on July 2nd and July 3rd. That hasn't quite been determined yet. But I love to come back to Canada. I've actually really grown fond of Canada. And it's my pleasure to come back and just, educate the people on the importance of actually fighting for freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. Because if you don't fight for it, you're going to lose it. And if they get their way, given the technological means they have at their disposal nowadays, once a totalitarian state they manage to actually, fully implement that, then we are no longer talking about like 70 years of Soviet Union or 40 years of GDR. We're talking about a very, very long time. Like I said, the mechanisms they have at their disposal, technology and everything, that's going to be a tough one to crawl to dig your way out of. So we need to fight, and I'm more than happy to, like I said, educate people on the importance of fighting for freedom, democracy, and the rule of law.
Christine, I'm gonna stay and just close it out properly. I know you got a heart out, so thank you very much for being here. Hopefully we can meet up in Canada, but if you're ever stateside again in the States, we will meet up again. Thank you for everything you're doing. Godspeed and God bless. And I'm gonna take a few questions and end this up without taking too much more of your time.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Well, anytime, always. Peace out. I'll bring this up. I know that she had a hard 45-minute out, and I didn't want to push my limits. Ordinarily, I take it as the greatest compliment when someone stays longer than they have to, but I know that was a hard 45-minute out, so I didn't want it to be awkward, but she pronounced Geert Wilders' name correctly, mega bass. Let me see. I forget how she pronounced it. Is it Geert Wilders? Geert Wilders. I'll say Geert Wilders if I had to guess. Nieboopsch, thank you. Yeah, if you've never met Christine before, that's one hell of a good introduction. Let me see what's going on in my chat over here. Then we got T Heights says, prayers for Christine. Love prayers for Christine. There aren't words enough to thank you for being a voice for the people, speaking truth with bold grace. I'm grateful God has your voice to wake up the public to the corruption. And as you say that, let me make sure that I give everybody her Twitter handle. Christine. And I'm going to get a question. There was a question in our Viva Barnes Law. Viva Barnes Law .locals.com community. Don't be offended that I didn't ask it. I didn't ask some of these questions. I don't like putting bad juju out in the universe. Hold on one second. Link, that is Christine Anderson's Twitter handle. Nieboop says, get me a schedule, Viva. You know I fly out. She is a gem. I think we might actually have 2 physical tickets to offer to our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community. The digital ones we've given the digital ones away. That's to attend virtually, but I'm fairly certain I didn't want to. It's Alberta. Did you say? Okay, it's in Alberta, people. Let me see here. Let me pull up the flipping thing to show everybody so that nobody missed the dates here. Hold on one second. Where is the schedule? I got it from. Won't mention names here. Let me open this up. Okay, so now I can show you all. First of all, unpin this. Now I go here. No, not that one. Now I go share screen to the window. Entire screen. No, I don't want that. Was the Hals? Hold on one second. Why can't I see this? I go like this. Oh, for goodness sake. I'm going to share it on Twitter. It's Calgary, June 28th, Edmonton, July 2nd, Christine Anderson tour. Someone just texted me something. I'm going to tweet this. Hold on. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to screen grab this. Who's texting me now? Screen grab this, share it on Twitter, and then share the tweet. So give me 1 second to do it so there will not be any misunderstandings or Viva screwing up on dates. Here we go. Canadian tour. This, share, and post. Boom. Now I get to go here and open this like such. And now I can show everybody without being an idiot. Too late. Okay, here we go. This is it, everybody. We're going to get, I think, and at the risk of having promised, we're going to get 2, I'm fairly certain, 2 in-person tickets. So when I get those, we're going to not auction them off. We're going to not raffle, but randomly give them away to members of our vivabarneslaw.locals.com community. And that's the lineup for the event and the tour dates. Yeah, okay, good. I've done my due diligence. Now, what I wanted to bring up was Viva Barnes on Rumble. Yeah, check this out. King of Biltong in the... come on, back it up. Here we go. Oh, come on, bring it. Oh, look what I've done now. Now I got to on Rumble. Here. Yeah, check quiet, Joe. Okay. Can I bring it up? This. There we go. Now I go like this. Okay. King of Biltong in the house, craving a snack that's bold, authentic, and packed with protein. Biltong boasts nearly 50% protein, packed with B12, creatine, iron, zinc, and more. BiltongUSA.com. Code VIVA for 10% off. King of Biltong, South African, living in Texas, making South African beef jerky. Delicious stuff. BiltongUSA.com. He's got his own channel. Eat at Anton's on Rumble. Kneeboop says, give me a schedule, Viva. You know I fly out. There it is. Okay. Bada bing. The question in the locals community from Zach the Cat was, is she afraid for her life or getting arrested? I don't know if there's anybody that is not afraid of that. I know that she's, in as much as you take precautions that are within the realm of rationality, about getting arrested, Christine Anderson, I can answer that question for her. She would go to jail if it meant the betterment of her country. She would go to jail if it would highlight the corruption, the insidious globalist destruction of German national cultural identity. And the one thing we didn't really get into, but we touched on it, was this news article that's going around today talking about the UK authorities identifying, are they calling it cultural nationalism? What's the word they're looking for? Yeah, cultural nationalism as some form of extreme right-wing terrorism. It's not a joke. So the problem is, and what's not a joke about it, is that it's not new. So the post is Inevitable West. The UK government just designated millions of British citizens terrorists. It's not hard to see where this is going. And this is from the government.uk. Prevent, whatever. This is an actual thing from the Prevent duty training. Prevent is some branch of the government. And it says extreme right-wing. We define extreme right-wing terrorism as the active or vocal support of ideologies that advocate discrimination or violence based on minority groups. The 3 most common subcategories of extreme right-wing terrorist ideologies and their narratives are: 1, cultural nationalism. Western culture is under threat from mass migration and a lack of integration by certain ethnic and cultural groups. Imagine criminalizing legitimate political disagreement. Imagine criticizing reality. Criminalizing reality. That's the post. Now, I thought, a summary, very quick research. The problem is, it's not new. This is the glossary of terms from the government.uk website, Prevent Duty Guidance from 2023. ERWT. Sounds like what you do. That sounds like a burp. Describes those involved in activity who use violence in furtherance of their ideology. Well, at least they said violence this time. Now it seems to be discrimination, whatever the hell that means. These ideologies can be broadly characterized as cultural nationalism, white nationalism, and white supremacism. Individuals and groups may subscribe to ideological tenets, and ideas from more than one category. Thanks a lot. So the bottom line, they're criminalizing reality. They're criminalizing political dissent. They're criminalizing political critique so that if you speak the truth to the power, they can lock you up for it. So the long answer to that short question was, if they were to criminalize that in Germany, which I have no doubt they're on their way to if they haven't already done, I don't think anyone wants to go to jail. But if they had to in defense of the truth, some would do it more proudly than others. All right, that's it. That's the Saturday, what day is it? Saturday afternoon live stream, peeps. Christine Anderson is amazing. You know that the value of an individual and the degree of the truth that they're speaking directly correlates to the demonizing and defaming in mainstream media. And when Christine goes to Canada, maybe Pierre Poilievre, tries to bury the hatchet, make amends. And we do have 2 VIP for Calgary or Edmonton. Booyah! So we'll figure out a way to raffle those in-person VIP tickets out on our locals community. For those who want to come over, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. It's the best way to support the work that we do. That's it. I've got a few things to do this weekend because kids are around and I hear them making noise. We've got some minnows in the fridge that we might want to go fishing with. And we've discovered a card shop, a collector card shop in the neighborhood, which I may have to go back to this afternoon. People, I may have rediscovered some obsessive compulsive activities when I was a young kid, collecting baseball cards that amount to nothing, but I think I've got the system now. So in 20 to 30 years, I'll have a valuable UFC fighting card. Go and enjoy the day. Everybody, thank you all for being here. Snip, clip, share away, and I will put this on audio version on podcast. It's Viva Frei Recovering Litigator or something. Go to Podbean, put in Viva Frei. I put on as many of the podcasts in audio format as I can remember, and sometimes I forget because I'm senile. But go and enjoy the day, and I will see you all tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, Viva and Barnes, Law for the People, Sunday night, Law Extravaganza, Christine Anderson, Godspeed. God bless everyone. Peace out.